This is my best friend Daniel. I'm actually reading a book right now called Life Cycle Investing. Someone had recommended it to me. There's something that it describes as human capital, and human capital is essentially how much money you can make over the course of your life. Often when you're in your 20s, that amount is a lot smaller and it gets bigger and maybe peaks somewhere between 30 years old and 50 years old. And then as you get closer and closer to retirement age, it starts to go down again. And the proposal in the book is that you should be heavily leveraged early in your investing journey, because in compound interest formula, the two things that matter most are time in the market and meaningful amount invested early, so it has time to grow. And it talks about how diversification doesn't just have to be diversifying amongst different asset classes like stocks, real estate, Bitcoin, all these other asset classes. It could be time diversification, meaning that when you look at a chart like the S&P 500, you don't want to invest all your money at any one specific time, right? Because if you invest it all right here at the top of the market, it doesn't help your returns as much as if you were to spread it out in big sums throughout these periods. So you are going to leverage into the market, and you leverage up heavily early in your investing journey. And then as you get older, you start to deleverage. Your income and expenses, it doesn't matter what the value of your income is, as long as it's higher than your expenses. The bigger the spread, obviously, the better it is, right? So you can change that in a few different ways. You can increase your income in various ways. You can work overtime, you can get a second job, you can get a promotion, you can apply for different jobs, you can start a side hustle, you can get a roommate. There's so many different things you can do to increase your income. Your expenses, you can reduce as well to increase that spread even further. And you can do one or you can do both. And the purpose of this cash flow is to take loans. You have to be careful with that cash flow, because if you have a variable interest rate on some of your debt, it can double or triple, and it can go beyond what your actual cash flow is, and that will get you in a lot of trouble really quickly. So that would be margin. Is you maybe want to use a third of your total available margin, because if the payment triples, one, you could be in trouble if you can't afford that cash flow, or two, you could get in trouble if you get margin called. So margin, you have to be careful, but you can take loans from other sources. I know you're really financially savvy and you have some paid off vehicles. So you could borrow from your paid off vehicle and you could push that money into the stock market. And the purpose of it is because in these graphs, almost all of the time, over any meaningful period of time, if you would have had that money in there 5 years earlier, and even if you're paying an interest rate of, say, 7%, your money's growing faster than that. And then what you're doing is your cash flow is just paying down that loan. And you don't have to speed to pay down that loan. I think it's good to still have extra cash flow that you can use for lifestyle, right? So I know you travel a lot, so maybe when you go out and do things like that, you need extra cash flow. Or if you want to go on vacation, or if an emergency comes up. I agree with the book Life Cycle Investing, where you want to leverage up early on, and you can use that from various different sources. So I think the car is a very good place to borrow from, and right now we've seen a little dip. It kind of depends on what you're looking at. So the S&P 500 is only down 3.5%, but if you were to, which is not bad, right? That's a very small dip. But Bitcoin is down like 28%. So if you believe in Bitcoin, it could be very powerful to take a chance and borrow $20,000 from a paid off car, invest it in Bitcoin, and then pay down that loan. And even if Bitcoin doubles, then your $20,000 turns into $40,000, and you're just paying interest on that loan. And I know that you can afford to. I know that your cash flow is respectable, and it's much higher than your expenses because you're a smart person. Yeah, you're a guy who knows how to manage his finances. So having cash flow is important. The bigger the number, the better. But the proposal would be to use that for some type of investment. I'm not saying it has to be Bitcoin, but since Bitcoin's down 28%, it could be a good investment, or you could do into any of the ETFs we talked about. And the benefit too of those ETFs is a lot of them have dividends. So I'm not a big dividends guy, but some dividends helps you offset that payment.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, a side note too, it's important to, like, when you're buying things that are not really assets, like your car really that loses value like that, to not use like expensive debt. You know what I'm saying? If you're gonna use debt, don't use expensive debt like the dealership.
With your car, so the better your credit score, the better. Also, the newer your car, the better rates you will get. and also your rates are negotiable. You often credit unions will give you the best interest rates. So my girlfriend actually just did this, and this is a huge hack, is M1 Finance is currently offering 4.4% interest if you don't have any margin outstanding. And she had $17,000 outstanding. She had a car where it's kind of new, and she was able to call them up, borrow $17,000 to pay off her car, and now she's going to pay off all of that margin, get 4.4% interest, then she's going to borrow all of that 17,000 from her margin at 4.4% and pay off that car. She just went from 5.9% interest on her M1 Finance debt down to 4.4% interest from robbing Peter to pay Paul. And I know that you just did. I mean, you didn't have any margin, I don't think, at the time.
No, I didn't have any.
But you just got 4.4% interest.
4.4%. So I'm probably making some purchases this week.
Are you talking about assets or something
more
else?
assets? I'm not. I don't really buy stuff.
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
What I mean? I want to see like the only things that I do that are kind of it's here and there. It's like a vacation and that type of thing. That's where sometimes I spend the money, but for the most part, it's like I don't know. I
like to make your money grow, right?
I just make the money grow and just chill. Like I don't know. I'm having fun. I enjoy being at the gym. Like I already do things that I like.
Likewise.
Try to make more money because I feel like that's a lot of trap. Like you talked about it already, where it's like people are here, they make more money. Now they want this. Now they want this. Now they want this, and then you never catch up. So I don't know. I'm just
lifestyle creep.
Yeah, I'm having fun.
Very smart.
And I just try to stay there. If the money keeps growing, great, and it will keep growing, and I'll just.
Early in your life, it's important to sacrifice a little bit to get a strong foundation. So both you and I now have a strong foundation, and it doesn't just come like immediately, but you can speed that up by using the strategy I just talked about. And you should sacrifice a little bit to make your dreams come true. But now both of us live a life that we're very happy with, and we don't need to buy like a Porsche to flex on people. I don't need to buy things to impress people. I would rather much have a big portfolio that grows, makes me money, and I just get to keep doing the things that I like with life. Freedom of time and the ability to do what I want to do when I want to do it is way more important to me.
And also too, it's like nothing wrong with having a Porsche, by the way. It's just more of like
it's an example.
Want to get it, get it when it makes sense. You know what I mean? Not because
you don't need it at 22 years old, though. Yeah.
Impress some chick.
Yeah.
Because usually kids will do that.
I disagree with you a little bit, and I'd challenge you a little bit, where I would say that if you're like 22 years old, I don't think you need to. You might think you deserve it and you should go get it. I don't think you really should get it. I think you should build a strong foundation first. Maybe if you're making a ton of money, you can. But at the same time, still, I think that it's better to take care of your future first. Of course, like, do whatever you want. Like, I don't care what you do.
The reason why I said that, like, let's say hypothetically you're 22, and let's say the only thing you do is investing, and you're 22, you're already like 200 millions. As an example.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You could get
do whatever you want.
And just pay with dividends, really.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
But that's different than if you're 22 and you're like just starting your journey and you make $20 an hour and you think that you're going to go get a Porsche and you're going to give yourself a payment that's like $600 a month and just ruin your financial future because you want to look cool. Like, it might feel cool and you might say that it's for you, but really a lot of the time when you're younger, you might be doing that to impress other people, but nobody cares. Here's the thing is barely people see you driving around anyway. And what's more important is how you feel about yourself. And you're going to feel better about yourself by doing things like going to the gym, reading, studying. And I don't mean going to school. I mean like self-development, right?
Actually, you know what else I've seen? Just to talk about like the Porsche. I've seen people who get motivated by that. Because if now it's going to motivate you and you delay your gratification a little bit, you'll keep making money. You'll keep making money because you're like, oh, I want to get this. I want to get the Lambo. I want to get this. I want to get this. It keeps you something to chase, I guess.
True.
Back to where we're talking about, something to chase. And if it motivates you to work, then so be it. Sometimes people are just lazy, you know what I mean? Or they don't have motivation.
So Andrew Tate, I just saw a reel today where he had posted where he had talked about how when he was maybe like 16 years old, he saw someone driving around in a Ferrari and he's like, I know that guy's not better than me. How does he have a Ferrari? And then making it come into fruition, like knowing that that's possible and that anyone can do it. And if that guy can do it, you can do it. It's a good way to put it.
We're all motivated by different things. Some people you're told like, oh, you can't do this. And then you're motivated.
You want to do it.
Yeah, because you're like, we'll see about it.
And when you say that, it doesn't mean necessarily your parents saying you can't do this. It's more like someone telling you that you can't be the president. So you're like, I'll show you.
You're like, yeah, exactly. Same concept. Somebody's like, oh, you can't be a president. And then you're like, okay, I'll do whatever steps it is to become a president.
Just talking about life cycle investing and how important it is to invest as much as you can as early as possible. And then essentially, as many of you may have seen my other videos, we have what's called buy, borrow, die, where you never sell your assets. You buy assets, you let them grow forever, and you just keep borrowing from them and buying more assets. And it's just an infinite loop of doing that. And the goal is, I don't know if you've ever ran the numbers, but I've ran the numbers many times where I'm going to get to a $3 million portfolio, and then I'm going to pretend that that's enough, and I'm going to get to like a $10 million portfolio because $3 million is really not that much. I'm going to be able to borrow money for the rest of my life, and it's going to outpace the inflation, and it's going to outpace the interest rate costs. And I'm pretty excited about that. A $10 million portfolio will just churn off so much money. It'll be something like, it'll be over $1.4 million a year in just growth. And then I can just do whatever I want. I can travel all the time. I can work on passion projects. There's just, I can give back so much more.
I heard somebody on the concept of borrowing because, people, it's scary, and we're told that it's scary from day one, the second you're born. And somebody was like, if you borrow 100K from the bank and you can't pay back, you have a problem. If you borrow 100 million from the bank and you can't pay back, we have the problem.
Exactly.
So the bank is gonna try to figure out like, how can we help you? Do you need more money to leverage to help you get out of this pickle?
Yeah, they're like, let's figure this out together.
For
you lunch.
It's like, let's grab lunch. Come here. We'll grab lunch. We'll talk about it. What we can do to help you solve this. Versus a car that's like 15, 20K, they'll just
take your car.
The car.
Yep.
Versus if it's like 100 million, they're like, hey, Mr. Mike, how can we solve this? Let's work this out.
Very true. Very true.
Which is, it's like crazy. That's why it's like the concept of never selling, and then as you grow, just borrow against, and everybody becomes in your corner. Do you know what I mean? If life ever gets complicated, it's not just a you problem. Everybody will be there for you to help you solve that.
Very true. And the thing is, since the government started printing money in the 70s, people that figured out how money works, they just started buying assets knowing that they go up in value. And it just became a way for people to get really rich. And this really makes the income gap even bigger. Not the income gap, I should say, but the net worth gap between the rich and the poor. It makes it bigger and bigger. It's just money keeps getting printed, and it gets pushed into assets, just artificially making them grow. That ETFs aren't going to zero. So that's why they're such a powerful wealth building tool. And the government has put into place measures after the 08 crisis to where they don't want to see 60, 70, 80% drops in the S&P 500. With everyone's 401k, everyone across the country is contributing into something very similar to the S&P 500, which pushes the price up and up. And when we see these discounts, when the price is going down, that's when you want to buy. And as you get older and older, maybe then you start to deleverage. That's one more thing they talked about in the life cycle investing book, is as you get, say, 50, 55, 60 is when you want to start deleveraging and maybe get your leverage down to almost zero. And that's when you can live off of your stocks, and you can start to sell some of them off once you get a very meaningful amount, or you can just keep borrowing on them forever. And when you pass away, you get to pass those assets off to your heirs at a stepped up tax basis. It's a lot of fun to do stuff like this, and as we grow more and more and we become multimillionaires, I'm looking forward to having you on the podcast a lot more. So
we're gonna be billionaires. We're gonna aim as high as possible. If you miss, you'll be like, man, I wanted $1 billion, but I'm only at 400 million.
So you are right, because Robert from Shark Tank has talked about how he wishes that he had aimed higher. If he could go back in time, that's the one thing he said he wishes he would do differently, is just aim way higher.
No, literally, it works. It keeps you going because you're capable of doing it, right? Versus if you hit your goal tomorrow,
it's like boring. It feels too easy sometimes when you actually hit your goal. And then also when you hit your goal or get close to your goal, I find that I move the goalpost further. So as I'm closing in on my first million, I'm moving the goalpost even further. I've set it out to 3 million now, and then shortly after it'll be 5 million. I would say that it's best to set really high goals, that you actually believe you can achieve, and then as you get closer to move that goal up even further. I don't think it's good to say at first that you're going to hit $1 billion if you have no even conceivable notion of how, like, you're not even close. Yeah. So it is first good to, in my opinion, it's good to be like, hey, I'm going to hit my first million. And then it's like, I'm going to hit my next 10 million. And then it's like, I'm going to hit my 100 million. And just maybe 10x your goal every time you hit it. Or as you even get close to it and start to believe like, hey, this is going to happen soon, then it's good to maybe just 10x it again.
Like having a big goal, but also keeping the steps. You know, it's like, okay, I'll hit 1 million first. I'll hit 5. But you have something that you might never achieve that top, but you're climbing the ladder, but you have that almost quote unquote impossible to reach.
Yeah.
But you have like little milestones that you look at, you're like, okay, in a year I wanna be at 2 million. In 2 years I wanna be at 10, When I'm 50, maybe I'll hit 1 billion. Man, you might not.
You might
hit it at 65. You're like, man, I could have done that at 50. And then when you're...
And you might be like, I should have set it for 5 mil. Good to have you on. I am looking forward to being millionaires together. Billionaire. I'm looking forward to being billionaires together. Let's go.